is that time. Actually, it's a little past the time that it should be, but that's the way it goes when we have a tour guide that just thinks he should be working instead of, being online with the Israel update. So, Hanoch, you kind of wimped out on me yesterday. You came in from what, Masada, a little on the warm side or something?
Yeah, well, yesterday wasn't Masada, but it was still a really, really long day. I crashed early, did not sleep, tossed and turned, and then got up at 4:30 this morning to do a 9-hour walking tour of Jerusalem
Okay.
with 11 people.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was let's just say interesting. And while we were in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, some bozo tourist left their knapsack.
Oh, no.
So they called in a suspicious package bomb alert. So I mean, yeah, I've never seen the church evacuated like that. It's kind of cool actually. But anyway,
Yeah. I mean, I think we should do that more often, but, it's just my opinion. Yeah. I
are
was
we
up on Bennu.
freezing up here?
Yeah, I can hear your voice, but sometimes you're freezing up a little bit. So, we'll do what we have to do here
Yeah.
today. I was up, I was actually up years ago. This was during the Oslo War. I was up on Ben Yehuda Street and got to watch him take the robot in and explode a backpack. It was pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen that once. And it's in at least at the time that I saw it, it wasn't, it was nothing with nothing.
Hmm.
I think someone left a pair of like running shoes or something, whatever it was. But yeah, we take that seriously.
Yeah, yeah.
As shifting into the news, what we take seriously, it appears the American government is is about to jump into bed with Iran again.
Well, it, it's it's just kind of, yeah. I think there's multiple partners in that in that scenario there, Hanok. I'm just saying it's a pretty crowded piece of furniture these days.
It's interesting how it reflects on Israeli politics
Okay.
because under Prime Minister Bennett and Yair Lapid was the foreign minister, not foreign minister, yeah, foreign minister. There was a distinct attempt to avoid criticizing America directly.
Mm.
After Bibi Netanyahu had really damaged the relationship with the American government, Bennett really made an effort not to. So the problem is now, when it appears the Americans are about to go back on everything they promised us, because with this deal, there is no way, as Biden said, that, America will never allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon. America will never. So that's clearly not going to happen. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays into our elections,
Mm.
upcoming elections, because every Israeli always ultimately votes on security.
Yeah.
Whoever they perceive is going to help keep them and their children safe, they will vote for. And that's why Netanyahu played the crowd like the master puppeteer that he is.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
we'll see.
It's actually kind of interesting that the elections in Israel and the elections in America they're like a day apart for the midterms here, I think.
We're voting on November 1st.
Okay.
I don't know when the Americans are voting.
Yeah, it would be Tuesday, which I think that may be the same date. I don't know. I can't pull my my calendar up right now because I don't have my adapter in to get my other screen up yet. But so it is, I mean, does that mean anything? I don't know if it does or not, but in the scheme of things, we see the world kind of swirling around the ceramic bowl there.
It's interesting. I've been reading a lot of different articles about different elements of anti-Semitism currently in the US. And in discussing it with friends and family in the US, people are blissfully unaware. Now I'm talking about real news items.
Mm-hmm.
Even something that seems bizarre, like at the State University of New York, SUNY, I'm not sure which campus, there was a student group, victims of, God, what's the term? Victims of sexual assault, okay? Victims of sexual assault. And two people were driven out of the group because they were identifiably Jewish and supporters of Israel.
Wow. Okay. I mean,
one thing has absolutely nothing to do with another. But in other words, if you were a college student on this campus and you were a victim of sexual assault and you went to this support group, you couldn't also be a supporter of Israel. Now, I don't, it's like, can you be a Mets fan but not a Yankees fan? I mean, the hatred is so. I got a snotty remark from a Canadian Jew in the Western Wall tunnels just yesterday, because I mentioned that what we call the Muslim Quarter was largely Jewish until the Arab riots between 1920 and 1936.
mm-hmm.
So like a moment later, he said, well, what provoked the riots of 1920 and 1936? I said, well, the fact that Jews continue to breathe is an offense that Islam cannot tolerate.
Yeah.
So he said, whoa, and I said, okay, your homework assignment, go and check the riots in Hebron in 1929.
Yeah.
More than 60 Jews were hacked to death, tortured terribly. None of them were quote unquote Zionist. They were all yeshiva students, all ultra-Orthodox Sephardi, who had been living in Hebron for hundreds upon hundreds of years. They were killed for one reason and one reason alone. They were Jews. And, I really wanted to go, I almost said a bad word. I wanted to slap him silly.
Yeah.
Really, because his parents were there and his dad, who's my age, is wearing like a gold earring. And I wanted to say, come on, man, grow up. But that's okay. That's okay. I calmed down and I thought to myself, what would Mike do?
Okay. I won't even ask what the answer is to
No. We
So-
don't have to go there.
So are the tours that you're leading, was this one yesterday or today? Is this American Jews?
This is going to come out so bad. Thankfully not.
Okay.
Today was Tourist Israel.
Okay.
What was interesting is I had 11 people that were all day Jerusalem, and I had 2 that were 3 hours highlights of Jerusalem, which is essentially the Jewish Quarter and the Kotel, the Western Wall,
Yeah.
and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Well, they insisted, aren't we going to go to the Via Dolorosa, which I typically don't do because it's a succession of different churches of different denominations. The church doors are locked. You can't get in, and you can say, this is station 4 of the cross, or this is station 5. Yeshua stumbles. Simon of Cyrene lifts up the cross, etc., etc., etc. Those 2 people happen to be a daughter and a father from France who were Jewish. So the 2 Jews out of 13 insist on going to the Via Dolorosa. Why? I have no clue, because as was shared to me by Christian clergy that I'm friendly with in Jerusalem, Pontius Pilate would have interviewed and or tried and or sentenced Yeshua in what is today Migdal David, the Tower of David.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only palatial structure in all of Jerusalem. That takes you on a whole different path to the site of Golgotha, the site of the crucifixion.
Yeah, but now you're confusing the issue with facts, which
I'm
is not
sorry.
something that you should be doing as a tour guide because
No,
it does cost you business.
it does. It
Mm-hmm.
does. But you know what? All these years, like I love, like recently when I was in the States, and people said, like, wow, so are all the people that you've been speaking to over the years in the Hebrew roots world coming to Israel? I'm like, not really.
Yeah.
And when they come to Israel, are you their tour guide?
Yeah.
Definitely not
Yeah.
really.
Okay.
So,
So
but that's not the issue.
let me ask you a question.
Sure, man.
The Via Dolorosa that you're walking on
Yes.
as you're, going over these stations, which I've been along there. How far down from street level is what was 2,000 years ago Jerusalem?
Okay. I have received different direction, if you will, from two major professors that I had in the tour guides course,
Mm-hmm.
authorities. One was saying that in some areas, it's down as far as 10 meters, which would be 30 feet.
30 feet.
However, Station 3 of the cross, that's what it's called, right opposite the Austrian hospice, there are a couple of stones from the original street, which would indicate street level.
Hmm.
Now, when you swing around the corner to Station 5, where you have the infamous handprint,
Ah, yeah.
Yeshua stumbled, and that's his handprint.
Yeah.
That's what the Catholics and the Eastern Orthodox say. I have an extremely high opinion of Yeshua's teachings.
I know you do.
Do I think that that's his handprint? Not a chance. Did someone preserve the stone with his handprint and then put it into a building built 1,600 years later? My brain's about to explode. I don't think so. But again, I come back to something a Baptist preacher said to me in the Western Wall tunnels. He said, may I suggest that instead of you telling people, because everyone's so focused on walking where Yeshua walked,
Mm-hmm.
he said, why don't you tell them to focus on living how Yeshua lived? Now,
Well, that would be an interesting thing.
okay, so I have to tell you in all honesty, I've tried it multiple times and it is bombed every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Because when your pastor or preacher tells you something, it's when your Orthodox Jewish tour guide tells you something, it's like, what does he know? Even if it's the exact same thing. Anyway, so it's okay. It's all good. It was interesting. I guided two of the new tours, the Great Bridge. And of course, in my mind, I'm always thinking, so how am I going to present this to our folks on Connect?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what gets my fingers tingling, really does. And I think we're down to under 70 days, October 31st. I think y'all are coming in like around 9 in the morning or something this time.
We have a lot of different flights coming in. We have a lot of people coming in at different days. So there's going to be numerous people in the land already. They're coming in 2 or 3 days
Which is
early.
great.
I'm going to be coming in about 9 o'clock. We have our couple from Belgium supposed to land about 3 o'clock. So we'll still spend some very quality time in
Quality
the Ben
time,
Gurion Airport.
quality time at the airport. The good news is, not all, but many of the stores have reopened.
Ah, good.
So, we will be able to get something to drink or eat or whatever. So that's really cool. I'm already getting a number of inquiries about Connect 2023, which is November 5th through the 17th.
Okay.
A really good time to start saving would be like yesterday.
Yeah. About a year ago.
Not putting any pressure on anybody. And of course, Mike, you and I cannot discuss publicly on the Israel update of the things that we're planning to add in. So, we can't say that. So please don't put me on the spot by asking me about those things, because we can't talk about them, remember?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anyway,
there are some things we're going to be adding into this one, and I think it's going to be. We've got some great people on this tour to begin with, so it's going to be a fun time. We've got a lot of people that are they're new, a lot of people that have been around for a while, have been on numerous tours actually, and so that's always, what keeps me coming back. This will be my 31st trip. I can't hardly imagine that. But what keeps me doing tours is watching people see it for the first time. There's
it
nothing
is
like
no,
watching someone see these things for the first time. Uh,
no.
Meet a person like Leah Goldsmith for the first time, meet Vered, and Udi. It was just,
I saw Udi today.
oh, good.
I took these people in. Again, this is a day tour. So I'm dragging them over and I'm telling them a little bit about his background, because the way I described it is Udi's personality makes him a sight in
Yeah,
Jerusalem that you have to have on your itinerary.
that he does.
And they couldn't believe that he gave them all a print. They couldn't believe it. They
Yeah.
couldn't believe it. And it's just, he's the sweetest guy alive. He
Mhm.
really is.
Yeah.
There's much to see, much has changed. Some of it is even for the better. The fact that everyone who has been in Israel before in our group will be getting a tour in the Western Wall tunnels of things they've never seen before.
Wow. Including
This
me.
is all,
Yeah.
oh,
Including
well,
me. I haven't
especially
been.
you, Mike,
Yeah. I haven't been
especially
there.
you.
So, well,
No,
hey,
this is
outside of
exciting.
the outside of the political things that are going on, I mean, it seems like Israel just kind of, the news is there's nothing that I've been seeing that's just kind of major. I know
Well,
this thing with Iran, but what else?
not just that, there is a real concern of war with Hezbollah
Okay.
from Lebanon, because of the offshore gas.
Mm-hmm.
And now, again, remember, Hezbollah in Lebanon is not Lebanon, it's actually Iran pulling the strings.
Right.
Hezbollah is a major power. It's not like Islamic Jihad that we got rid of in 15 minutes, at least temporarily got rid of in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
Hezbollah has about 110,000 to 150,000 rockets and missiles, many with precise GPS guidance. Big concern. How do you know that we're taking it seriously? The commander, the IDF commander in the north, was scheduled to be replaced. His tour of duty had ended.
Right.
They're holding off on replacing him. We only do that when we're on a war alert. So that leads me to believe that this is a major concern.
Mm-hmm.
So again, what does this mean for our listeners? The time to stand with Israel is now, guys. Now, of course, when I say that on the Israel update, when you say that on the Israel update,
Oh, yeah.
we're preaching to the choir. We are preaching to the choir. We are talking to the people who are most receptive and really, really live, breathe, pray, and bleed for Israel on all levels. You know, I mean, it's what it is that others don't understand that we so readily get. I mean, you know, I even changed the way I talk to these people on day tours. And I say to them directly, the reason you're here is because there's something in Israel that resonates in your heart. You can go on a cheaper vacation in Croatia.
Yeah.
You can go to Hawaii, you know, book them, Dano. You can do that. But people come to Israel. And again, as I say to them, thank you so much for coming now when we are at the hottest and most humid time of our 7-month-long summer.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I experienced humidity in Mississippi, Louisiana, Florida, and Texas. But then in hindsight, I look back on it, and I was getting in and out of someone's car and in and out of Walmart.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing as taking people up to the top of Masada.
That's true. That's true.
It's
There's
not.
not, yeah, that's a lot like taking a
Anyway.
vacation in Phoenix in July, which I don't suggest you doing that. Okay, so Hanoch, when you say
Yeah.
to these people that there's something inside of you that drew you to this place, what is the reaction? Because a lot of the people that you're guiding, I feel like are more secular. You know, even the American Jews that you're guiding probably more secular.
Generally true.
So
Generally true.
what's their
Certainly with
reaction to you when you
Israel.
say that?
Okay. I get different reactions. Some I get the general blank look that I could be saying to them like ippity bippity bop. And they kind of like, kind of like, you know, they're like those little dolls that our parents used to have in the back of the cars.
Yeah.
Would, you know, kind of just rock back and forth, the little doggies. Others, I see like lights going on. Like, yeah. And you could see others are starting to think maybe I should know more. Now, it's interesting in the Western Wall tunnels, because I began guiding again in August, right after Tisha B'Av. So an enormous amount of either modern Orthodox or what we call yeshivish, in other words, ultra-Orthodox American Jews, are here.
Okay.
And I have fine-tuned my pitch in the Western Wall tunnels, and it's very heavily all about the temple. And the only reason that the Western Wall is not the holiest site on earth to the Jewish people, et cetera, et cetera. One guy from Maryland came over to me and said, you know, I feel like I've been cheated. I said, by me? He said, no, quite the opposite. He said, my entire life in all the yeshivas that I attended, they always, you know, the kotel, you're going to go to Israel and pray at the kotel. And you just explained to me that we're only there because it's the spot closest to the Holy of Holies. Otherwise, we could be praying at the Southern Wall or the Eastern Wall. And I wanted to go like jump up and give him a high five saying, you got it, bro. You got it. Anyway.
Well, you know,
What can I say?
I remember a mutual friend, I won't mention him name, but a mutual friend of ours that told me the experience of going to the Temple Mount the first time. Had for many years not gone up there, kind of in a bit of a protest because of the, you know, all that goes on the Temple Mount.
Yeah.
And the experience that they had the
Right.
first time that they were there, you know, you're right. It's not talked about. people go, well, let's go to the Western Wall. Well, the Western Wall is fine, but now that the Temple Mount is open, is this maybe a little bit of the scripture that Moshe said to Joshua, wherever you put your foot, and it maybe there's something in a spiritual realm that's happening when you and I and others, we decide I'm putting my feet on that ground.
You that is the view of the Ramban, not the Rambam. Ramban with the N, of Moshe ben Nachman. And there's a very big movement in Israel. People never used to go up to the Temple Mount within the Orthodox community, the Dati Leumi, the national religious,
Mm-hmm.
and the Haredi, the ultra Orthodox. More people are going up than ever before. And it's a sense of, even amongst more secular Israelis, the Temple Institute, Machon HaMikdash, did this great little, like kind of stopping the men and women in the street. And the average Israeli, like, wait a minute, why can't we pray on the Temple Mount? Even if they don't pray, so why can't Jews pray there? Why? And I can tell my tour in the Western Wall tunnels is woke, because when I say, and this is the one site in Israel where we have absolutely no freedom of religion whatsoever. And they're like, and I just really, it's moments like that that you say the wisdom of the Israeli police department that says, Hanoch, you should not have a firearm. Anything more potent than a water gun, you should not have.
Yeah, they're just repeating the instructions that were given from many other people. But that know you well.
That's so true. That's so true, Mike.
Anybody that wants to talk about apartheid, Israel is called an apartheid country. Let me give people two things to do, and then come back and talk to me about apartheid. Number one, go to the entrance to any of the Palestinian controlled areas and read the huge red sign that says, if you're an Israeli citizen, do not enter here because you may not come out the other end. That kind of paraphrasing. And then go to the Har HaBayit, the Temple Mount, and tell me how many Jews or anybody else is allowed to pray there. And now come back and talk to me about apartheid.
It's also, if you're a woman, walk through Mamilla Mall, the outdoor mall, and see how many Muslim women with the hijab and everything. No one gives them a dirty look. No one even looks at them. You're just part of the crowd. Then, as a woman, go over to Shar Shem, the so-called Damascus Gate, and just walk around a little bit and see how you're treated.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're identifiably Jewish.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah. The other thing is stand there in Jerusalem and listen to the Muslim prayers 5 times a day. I remember living in the old city a couple of times and having to wake up to that. And I'm thinking, no wonder these people are in such a bad mood all the time. Anyone that's their alarm clock, I'd be in a bad mood too.
There's a way that you take these complex issues and you boil it down so the rest of us can really understand and relate to it. Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate that.
But what would happen, Hanoch, what would happen tomorrow if all of a sudden the Israeli government actually found a backbone, which I don't have that much faith for, but they actually found a backbone, and someone said, okay, so from the Western Wall, the Kotel, on the Western Wall, we're going to, over a speaker, we're going to
or the PA. Yeah,
broadcast the Shema 3 times a day.
exactly.
What would
There
happen?
actually there are some the world would come to an end.
Yeah,
Seriously. And
yeah.
what's interesting is someone who someone was on the tour today and said to me, first of all, was every time I mentioned something about the Via Dolorosa, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, because as a guide, I have to explain the history of what's going. She was making faces the whole time. And then she said to me afterwards, said, listen, I've studied the Tanakh. Now, when the average person uses the term Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, I was really stunned. But she went on and said, listen to this. If Israel was really a Jewish country, I've read, the Gentiles trampling Jerusalem, and she points to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and said, you can see it happening right now. And I said, no, actually, that's referring by the prophets of Israel to times when foreign entities came in, killed Jews, burned things down, destroyed them. It's not referring to people going into a church. She said, well, why is it still here? I said, excuse me, we in Israel have never destroyed a church.
Mm-hmm.
The Persians did in the year 614. We believe in freedom of religion. We don't shut down a mosque. We do not close down a church because we think that Queen Helena finding the actual true cross, etc., is a silly idea. We don't do that. We say that with a wink and a nudge, but we don't do that. Crazy.
Well,
People just say crazy stuff. And
yeah.
I've told you before, I have trouble with adults who make me seem mature and sophisticated.
Mm-hmm. I think that I got a good idea is that I should announce that I'm going to be running for prime minister because, I would break all that tradition and shut every one of them down. Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Well, we have Itamar Ben-Gvir, who has very similar thoughts, who's also running for the Knesset. We have got everybody running for the Knesset.
Hey,
I'm one of the few people in the country not running for Knesset.
there's a reason.
Somebody has got to guide the tourists that people hope will come to Israel.
That's right. That's right. Well, folks, pardon our bad connection. There's nothing we can do about that. You're 7,000 miles between us here. Even with fiber optics, that's a little bit tough. So you can just go through and record and listen to this multiple times, and that way you can get these times when Hanoch went. "Eh, eh," it's funny sometimes to watch that. But if you actually do that, you need a life. Just saying.
I agree. I agree.
Okay.
Anyway,
All
Mike,
right.
have a great week. It's almost time to start packing for Israel, man.
Hey,
It's going to be
I
in
know
September in a few minutes.
some that already have.
Excellent. I'm so
Yeah,
happy to hear that.
yeah, yeah. They
Fabulous.
actually have. So, all right. Hey,
All
try to
right.
get some rest and
I will.
stay inside where it's cool, and we'll see you next week.
I will. Take care, man. Bye-bye.